Discover the sinister secrets that haunt those who dare to watch only for the brave and sleepless. Sarah gripped the edge of her desk, her heart racing as the phone rang for the umpteenth time that night. The sterile light of her dispatcher booth flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls of the cramped office. Only the faint hum of the radio filled the silence, and outside, Maple Hollow slept, yet something felt terribly wrong. Was it just fatigue from the long nights, or was darkness creeping in, suffocating her one safe haven? As she picked up the receiver, an ice-cold shiver slithered down her spine. 911, what's your emergency? A voice, raspy and quaking, barely broke the stillness. They're watching from the trees. The call cut out abruptly, leaving Sarah clutching the phone like it was a lifeline in an abyss of dread. Her mind raced back to the rumors, whispers of pets disappearing, of shadows flitting just out of sight. Pranks, she murmured to herself, shaking off the unease that threatened to consume her. But every ring, every frantic call, tightened the vice around her heart. In the quiet hours, when the world wore a veneer of safety, Sarah couldn't shake the anxiety gnawing at her. Reports of children's laughter suddenly silenced and neighbors locking their doors too soon dotted her mind like ominous stars in a dark sky. Each call felt closer, each incident more chilling. And Jamie, those soft giggles echoed in her thoughts, anchoring her to sanity as terror seeped into every corner of her life. That night, as the clock edged toward 3 a.m., her fingers trembled over the keyboard. Another prank, she told herself as the phone howled for attention again. The caller ID showed a number not recognized. A sick feeling twisted in her stomach. 911, what's your emergency? A laugh, dark and taunting, reverberated through the line. Are you ready to play, Sarah? The voice dropped to a whisper. Your son he's in danger. Before she could respond, the line went dead with the finality of a guillotine falling. Panic surged through her veins. Jamie! She shouted, leaping from her chair. The house felt foreign as she dashed through it, dread pulling at her insides. The front door creaked open. Jamie! Silence echoed back, thick and menacing. She stumbled outside, the chill of the night wrapping around her, each shadow a potential threat. Her heart raced with every beat, each one reminding her of breathless moments with her son. The streetlights flickered like they were in on the farce. This place was safe, right? Yet, a shiver of betrayal cast a pall on every familiar face she had ever greeted. Panic clawed at her throat, desperate for answers. She raced to the neighbor's door, but they simply raised brows, dismissing her unease and steering the conversation to the mundane. You're overreacting, Sarah. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah darted into the dark, cold streets, she felt the weight of Maple Hollow's secret suffocating her hope. Every missing child, every echoed laugh that faded into screams played on a loop in her mind. The entities hidden in the shadows weren't merely tales to quell bedtime fears, they were real. And then she saw it, a silhouette just beyond the glow of the streetlight, still as death. Lightning cracked, revealing the figure of someone she should be recognized. A shiver coursed through her. Someone she trusted, now cloaked in darkness, waiting to unveil the truth. Would she uncover it in time to save Jamie, or was she about to step deeper into the shadows of Maple Hollow, trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she squinted through the rain, trying to grasp the figure shrouded in the darkness. Torn between recognition and fear, she took a hesitant step forward. Who's there? She called, her voice trembling. The figure remained motionless, barely visible against the backdrop of curling fog. Had she misjudged a friend, or was it a sinister trick of the night? Lightning flashed again, illuminating the face in stark relief, revealing a hauntingly familiar smile, a warped echo of the past she wished to forget. Sarah, the voice floated toward her, a honeyed tone coated in malice. I've been waiting for you. Frozen, she realized who it was. Greg. A once trusted friend from her childhood, now twisted by darkness. Memories flooded her mind, carefree days and the warmth of friendship, now suffocated under layers of dread. What do you want? She managed to whisper, the blood pounding in her ears. Don't you see? It's all part of the game, he said, stepping closer, the shadows clinging to him like mist. Your boy, he asked the last piece. What are you talking about? Her voice was barely above a murmur as her heart raced, urging her to run yet keeping her rooted to the spot. Greg laughed, a sound that sent a chill down her spine. Maple Hollow has its rules and we've all played. You think you're not part of it? Think again. He has to play, just like you. For a brief moment, doubt gripped her. Was Jamie truly in danger? The thought wrenched her heart. Before she could ask more, he extended a hand, palm upturned, as if offering her a choice. Join us, Sarah. Embrace the game or lose everything. The night was alive with a chorus of whispering winds, echoing unanswered questions. She could feel it, an underlying pulse that seemed to seep through every crack in her mind. Maple Hollow was no longer an idyllic town, it was an unseen web, begging to ensnare her. I'll never join you. She spat the words, fists clenching at her sides, ignoring the inner voice that whispered doubts. Suddenly, a scream shattered the air. It came from the direction of her house, a high-pitched terror that drove nails of panic into her heart. Jamie! She screamed, spinning on her heel, racing against the night. With every step, her fear morphed into raw adrenaline, propelling her forward through the rain-slicked streets, the voices of doubt now drowning in the sound of her own heartbeat. She reached her front door, her hands fumbling with the handle as her breath came in ragged gasps. The scream was gone, replaced by an oppressive silence that filled the air like thick fog. Cautiously, she stepped inside. Darkness swallowed her whole. Her pulse quickened as she scanned the room. Everything was still. The living room was untouched, the toys scattered as she had left them. But there was a profound weight to the silence, as if the house itself held its breath. Then she heard it, a soft giggle from the hallway, a sweet, innocent sound that cut through the tension like a knife. Was it Jamie? Hope flickered within her like a dying flame. She moved toward the sound, each step echoing through the emptiness, anticipation mingling with dread. The light from Jamie's bedroom seeped through the slightly cracked door, casting long shadows on the hallway walls. Jamie? She called, her heart pounding. As she pushed the door open, an icy breath seemed to whisper against her neck. And there he was, standing in the middle of the room, framed by the pale light, staring into the darkness beyond with an unsettling grin that made her stomach churn. The laughter that escaped him was no longer innocent. Mommy, come play, he beckoned, the shadows behind him deepening as they twisted into shapes no light should ever touch. In that moment, Sarah understood whatever game they were playing, the rules had changed. And there was no turning back. The air hung heavy with dread as Sarah stepped inside the room, her heart a jackhammer against her ribs. Jamie's face, illuminated by the ghostly glow of his nightlight, twisted into an expression she struggled to comprehend. That playful smile had morphed into something darker, something taunting. The shadows danced behind him, elongating, warping into grotesque figures that seemed to pulse with each flickering light. Jamie, what's happening? She gasped, her voice thin and strained. There was no answer, just the relentless, echoing laughter that burrowed deep into her bones. It crawled under her skin, clawing at her sanity. The walls of the room closed in on her, leaving no space for the air she desperately needed. She stepped further into the room, clutching the doorframe for support. Jamie. Please. Talk to me. His eyes glinted, reflecting an uncanny mischief as he turned away from her, eyes locked onto something unseen. Her instincts screamed for her to grab him, to pull him away from whatever malevolence lurked in that shadowy corner. Instead, she remained frozen, a spectator in a nightmare. "Mommy, why won't you play with us?" he asked, his voice now oddly layered, like two children speaking in unison. An icy shiver crawled down her spine. "Us?" she echoed, dread pooling in her stomach. "Who else is here?" At once, the room seemed to shudder. The shadows intensified, and a cold breeze swept through, snuffing out the nearby candle, plunging them into a deeper darkness. Panic fluttered in her chest. "Come play, Mommy, we've been waiting." The whisper curled around her like smoke, suffocating and sweet, laced with the promise of terror. "Get away from him!" she shouted, rage and fear igniting something primal. She lunged forward, toward Jamie, but a firm, unseen force pushed her back, slamming her against the wall. The air buzzed thickly, laden with tension as if the very fabric of reality warped around them. The shadows surged forward, forming into twisted figures, remnants of memories Sarah had tried to bury. She gasped as she recognized faces, old friends, childhood companions, all with the same distorted smile that once brought her comfort. "Sarah! Join us!" they echoed tauntingly, a chorus of guilt and nostalgia. Each voice was a reminder of the innocence lost, pupils glinting with malicious delight. "No! I want tea!" she screamed, shaking her head violently as she struggled to regain control. In that moment, Jamie turned, his eyes wide and glistening with an unnatural joy. "Mommy, you don't understand the fun." A primal scream erupted from somewhere deep within her. "This isn't fun. It's a trap." But the room vibrated with glee, the laughter surrounding her like a thick fog, wrapping too tightly, as if they intended to smother her hope, and then, something snapped. The shadows recoiled slightly, and Sarah seized the opportunity. "Jamie! Listen to me. We need to go." But before she could reach him, the walls of the room surged, twisting, distorting reality further. It was losing its shape, morphing into a maze of terror. It was shifting, the shadows beckoning her to join them, to play their game, and the temptation was almost overpowering. Jamie South's smile remained in place, but confusion flickered there, deep beneath the surface. "Mommy?" he whimpered, the laughter fading into something softer, more frantic. She hesitated. In that fleeting second, doubt crept in. Could she fight this? Could she save him? Or had the game already claimed them both? As if sensing her inner turmoil, the shadows thickened, threatening to sweep her away. "Join us, Sarah," they hissed, voices echoing without end. Terror rippled through her. She gasped, retreating, searching for a way out. "We have to leave." The warning was a breathless plea, but Jamie took a step toward the shadows instead, his small hand outstretched. "Come play with us, Mommy, you promised, remember?" The question hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of her past. And then she understood. The game was about to begin. What horrors awaited as the darkness closed in? Was there still a way to escape? Or would she find herself another piece on the chessboard of Maple Hollow's tormented past? Sarah felt the walls of the room pulse around her, shifting and compressing with every agonized breath. Was this reality, or had she crossed over into a nightmare she couldn't escape? The shadows twisted closer, eager fingers brushing against her skin, chilling her to her core. The laughter morphed into a cacophony, warping her every thought into an endless spiral of despair. "Jamie!" she shouted again, but her voice cracked, barely making it through the oppressive gloom. The grotesque figures coiled around him, their distorted faces grinning with hungry anticipation. They had come for him. Her son. "Mommy, why won't you play?" Jamie cried, and each word felt like a blade piercing her heart. "Because it's not safe. We need to get out. Now." The shadows lunged, thick and slithering, reaching for her. They snaked around her ankles, dragging her down. She stumbled, the ground beneath her feeling like wet cement, as if the very earth was against her. Panic surged like a tidal wave. She twisted, flailing, desperate for escape, but the laughter grew louder, drowning her out. "Sarah! Join us!" echoed the haunting voices of her past, each syllable dripping with malice. Friends she'd lost over the years, memories she thought buried forever, rose from the dark. Their sunken eyes gleamed with acidity. "It's a trap!" she yelled, struggling against the suffocating grip of the shadows. But Jamie stepped further into the swirling darkness, oblivious to the danger. "Please, Mommy. I want to play." His voice was soft, almost sweet, but a sinister undertone filled the air, thickening around her like fog. "No, no. Jamie, please." In that fleeting moment, she glimpsed something in her son's eyes. Doubt. Fear. Could he feel the wrongness? "Mommy, do you remember the game?" Terror coiled tighter in her chest. What game was he talking about? The walls cracked, staining the air with echoes of laughter, and she was thrown back, nearly losing her footing. "Jamie!" Her muscles trembled as she lunged toward him, fueled by a potent mix of love and fear. But the shadows giggled, pulling Jamie unwillingly into their fold. "Come join us, forever." The words dripped like icicles, freezing her in place. Her heart raced, instincts screaming to pull Jamie back from the void. The room twisted, distorting, its familiar corners disappearing into a swirling mass of chaos and fear. "Help me. They're lying. They'll take you." A flicker of recognition crossed Jamie's face, but it was quickly snatched away by the shadows whispering sweet nothings in his ears. "Mommy, it's just a game. You promised." Before she could fully comprehend, the walls pulsed and shook like a living entity, the shadows crashing against her with renewed vigor, attempting to isolate Jamie from her grasp. Time to play. In that moment of desperation, Sarah pushed against the pain. "No. I won't let you take him." Yet her voice all but vanished into the tide of laughter, swallowed by the very darkness she was trying to fight. That a chilling realization settled in her bones. This was a game, but the rules were not hers to control. With every passing second, she could feel Jamie slipping further away, caught between innocence and the seductive allure of the shadows. "Mommy, why don't you love me enough to play?" Jamie's question infested the room like a pestilence. "No. I love you," she screamed, but the words tasted bitter on her tongue, and then, suddenly, the shadows recoiled slightly, caught in a moment of hesitation, revealing a pale flicker of light behind them. A doorway? An escape? But the twisted laughter surged again, rising to a fever pitch. "The game has just begun, will you join us?" Breath stolen from her lungs, fear clawing at her throat, she had to decide. Could she fight this? Or was the darkness already too deep? She grasped Jamie's hand, feeling the coldness radiate from the shadows. "We have to go now." But the darkness swirled around them, ready to consume. What unseen horror lurked within that flickering light? Did it represent hope, or an even greater peril? The ground beneath Sarah trembled, and the shadows writhed with new life, swirling in a chaotic dance of malice. She pulled Jamie closer, praying for strength, desperate not to let go. The flickering light grew brighter, illuminating the grotesque faces that surrounded them, each grin wide and predatory. "Mommy, don't be scared," Jamie urged, his small hand slipping from her grasp. "It's just a game. Jamie, listen to me." Sarah's voice broke, but determination ignited her fear. She lunged forward, wrapping her fingers tightly around his wrist. "We need to leave, not play." A ripple of anguish crossed Jamie's face. Was he starting to understand? But the shadows snickered, tightening their grip around him, their whispers clawing at his innocence, enticing him with promises of endless fun and laughter. "Mommy," he said, voice trembling, "why don't you want to play?" "No. I always want to play with you." She fought against the shadows, tears streaming down her face. "But this isn't right, they want to take you from me." The shadows paused, and for a terrifying moment, the laughter faded, replaced by a deathly silence. In the heart of that stillness, trembling fingers reached out to her, beckoning her towards the light. Her heart pounded furiously as she weighed her options. "Mommy!" Jamie cried again, the desperation in his tone echoing through her bones. "If you love me, you'll play." In that second, a shadow lunged, spiraling towards her like a black wave, teeth bared. Cold dread washed over her, and she shut her eyes, feeling the world fracture around her. When she opened them, a malevolent grin spread across her son's face, the flicker of light behind the shadows shifted, pulsing with a heartbeat that matched her own. "Obey," it whispered, a chilling echo that echoed in her mind. "No!" she shouted, the air around her hot with the depth of her resolve. "You won't have him." In a burst of instinct, she pulled Jamie towards the light, kicking at the shadows with all she had. For an instant, they recoiled, and she seized the moment, yanking him alongside her. But the shadows surged back, vicious and relentless, smothering her once more in icy tendrils. "Playtime is all we seek," they screeched, blending their voices into a terrifying symphony that spiraled around her, mocking, taunting. She stumbled as they squeezed harder, tearing away at her grip on reality, each second stretching like an eternity. Desperation clawed at her insides as Jamie's eyes filled with confusion. "Mommy, I don't understand. Just trust me," she cried, her heart breaking into fragments. The light flickered again, pulsating, drawing her in, but could it be a trap, too? "Join us. Join us. Forever," urged the shadows, slithering along the ground, pulling her towards the dark abyss. Then, with a fervent scream, she shoved against the shadows, throwing herself into the beam of light. For a fleeting moment, warmth enveloped her, hope ignited. But in that blinding instant, as she felt Jamie slip from her grasp, she saw it, a face, twisted in agony, trapped within the unyielding light, begging for escape. "Mommy!" Jamie's voice slipped into nothingness as the shadows tightened their vice-like grip. "Jamie!" She screamed again, but all that echoed back was the cacophony of laughter, drowning her primal cry. The shadows whispered promises of power and endless joy, but she could feel the truth beneath their clatter, a darkness yet unspoken. For a fleeting moment, she glimpsed the door behind them, now flickering rapidly, fading like memories of peace. Could she wrest Jamie from the depths? Or was he lost forever, swallowed by the abyss before her? The shadows swirled, charging at her with renewed fury. Sarah felt the weight of despair clawing at her throat, and then, she made a choice, a desperate act. Summoning every ounce of courage she had left, she turned to face the darkness. Maybe it's time to change the rules. What would that plunge into darkness unleash? Would it save them, or expose them to horrors unimaginable? Sarah took a deep breath, heart racing. The shadows encroached, their laughter turning to horrifying shrieks, echoing in her ears like a tragic symphony. Something surged within her, a resolve she had never felt before. "I'll play," she said, voice quivering yet firm. The air shifted. The shadows hesitated, curiosity igniting in their beady eyes. Whispers flew through the darkness, hissing like snakes in the grass. They didn't just want Jamie. They wanted her. "Bring it on," she thought, and took another step toward the pulsing light. "Mommy, no." Jamie's voice cracked, filled with confusion and desperation. "Trust me," she shouted back. Then she threw her head back, laughing with abandon, catching them off guard. It was a sound laced with fury, punctuated by fear. "I want to play your game." The shadows recoiled as if slapped. They exchanged bewildered glances, their masked faces twisting in uncertainty. "Play?" one hissed. "Don't you mean to join us?" "No," she grinned, "I mean to win." A sudden clarity gripped her. She wasn't just a pawn anymore. She was a player, and now she wore the mask of defiance. Each step toward the light felt charged, electric. The shadows writhed as she approached, confused and furious. "Mommy, please come back!" Jamie cried, his own fear bolstering her strength. "Stay close," she commanded, but could feel him tangling in the shadows trying to pull him away. Time twisted, stretching as icy fingers clawed at her ankles. The light pulsed brighter, urging her on, reminding her of what she was risking. A shadow surged forward, lunged at Jamie, jagged teeth snapping like a ravenous beast. "You're ours!" It shrieked, just moments before Sarah darted sideways, knocking it backward with a ferocious strength she didn't know she possessed. "Mommy!" Jamie whimpered, trembling but standing firm. He was fighting too, fighting for her. "Don't look at the shadows!" she yelled. "Look at me!" Her heart thumped painfully fast as she reached into herself for the light she had almost lost. She clutched her son's wrist, with warmth radiating from her palm to his. She could feel him pulling against the shadows, and they screamed in outrage, their fury palpable, an insidious wind that chilled the air. "Join us!" they wailed, a chorus of torment, filling the space between them. "No!" Sarah shouted back, her voice cutting through the malice like a sword. "I will never join you." The shadows writhed, twisting and curling like smoke. Sarah could feel their anger rising, an unholy energy ready to explode. She leaped again, pulling Jamie close, feeling his small frame beside her, grounding her in her chaos. "Mommy, I'm scared." His eyes were wide, glistening with tears. "I know," she whispered. The warmth of his little hand in hers became her armor against the encroaching dark. The pulsing light grew fiercer, blinding in intensity. For a heartbeat, Sarah saw shapes trapped within faces contorted with despair, mouths gasping for salvation. Each one bore a tortured expression, and a chill of realization gripped her heart. These were others like her who had chosen poorly. "Let us go!" she shouted, tugging Jamie towards the light. But the shadows surged again, a wall of darkness looming, desperate to engulf them. "We can't leave!" they howled, clawing, scratching, pouring into the space between them. In that moment of collision, where hope met despair, Sarah's resolve hardened. She felt the air thicken, the shadows close in, but she would not falter. Summoning every ounce of her being, she screamed, "You cannot take us. We choose to fight." And for a heartbeat, time froze, everything the shadows had ever whispered turned to silence as the light flared up brighter than ever before. Sarah's pulse echoed in her ears, the tension suffocating. All that remained was the promise of what came next. With a furious roar, the light expanded, blinding her momentarily, and then darkness reigned. The laughter stopped abruptly. In its place, only silence hung thick, oppressive. What had they unleashed? And in that darkness, where was Jamie, really? Was he still with her, or had the shadows claimed him in their cruel dance? "Sarah," a voice floated through the void, haunting, familiar. What had she done? As the darkness swept over her, it whispered of things unspeakable. What happens now, she thought as a deep chill settled over her very soul. Would the shadows answer? Sarah blinked against the dimness, her heart thudding like a hammer against metal. The air felt alive, charged with a malevolence that seeped into her bones. "Jamie?" she called, her voice trembling, swallowed by the dark. Silence echoed back, thick and suffocating. Panic clawed at her throat, twisting. Had the shadows taken him? A wave of despair crashed down, threatening to pull her under. No. Focus. She thought. She squeezed her eyes shut, battling the disorienting fear. A gust of wind rippled through the darkness, rustling like dry leaves. Something moved, a whisper, fleeting and irritatingly close. "Sarah," it hissed, an eerie mimicry of Jamie's voice. She spun around, eyes wide, but saw nothing, only the endless void. "Show yourself," she shouted, her voice stronger than she felt. The whispers turned to laughter, sharp and cruel, ringing in her ears. The shadows inside twisted, displaying grotesque shapes that shifted like reflections on water. They fed off her fear, a dark banquet. "Mommy, it's dark," Jamie's small voice emerged, barely a breath above the shivering stillness. "Jamie! Where are you?" she screamed, straining to hear him. "Help me!" he cried. Before she could react, a shadow lunged forward, its form shifting and bending, clawed hands reaching out. Time froze as dread wrapped around her like an icy coil. She struck out, desperate, but her hand met only air. "You want to take him?" she yelled. With a roar, she charged into the inkiness, mustering every bit of fury and love. The darkness responded, swirling around her, suffocating her as it wrapped tighter. Each step was a battle against the weights pressing into her chest. With determination, she forced her way through. "I choose love. I choose Jamie," she shouted, her voice a battle cry that shattered the silence. The shadows recoiled, hissing. "Join us!" they screeched, voices layered and distorted, weaving through her mind. "No!" she cried again, feeling the warmth of his presence a tether against the gloom. She pressed on, embers of hope glowing brighter. She remembered the faces she'd seen trapped in the light, a plea ringing in her mind. "I will not abandon him. Mommy!" Jamie's voice trembled, a fragile thread in the bitter darkness. "I'm here," she called back, her heart racing. "I'm coming for you." Suddenly, things shifted. The shadows laughed mockingly, the sound echoing, intertwining with her own heartbeat. "You are too late." They jeered, pulling at her limbs, tugging her back. "You've already lost." Then she saw him, a flicker of light just beyond an obscured corner. Jamie stood there, so small and innocent, but surrounded by encroaching figures. Broken silhouettes danced menacingly, their shapes shifting and merging with the shadows. "Stay there." "I'm almost." A shadow lunged at her again, but this time she sidestepped, gripping the light coursing through her, turning it into an energy that surged through her fingertips. "No one touches my son," she shouted, and with a wave of her hand, she sent a cascade of light shooting out, illuminating the void momentarily. With renewed strength, she sprinted toward Jamie, feeling the shadows shrieking behind her as they recoiled from the light. But as she reached out, a cold hand grasped her ankle. Terror surged as she fell, the darkness yanking her down. "Jamie!" she screamed, grasping wildly for him, but the shadows threatened to swallow him whole. Heart pounding, she felt something shift underneath her. Time twisted again. An unsettling calm washed over her, stillness shattered just moments later by a chilling laughter ringing through the darkness. It was more than taunting, it was a sinister promise of despair. "Sarah, you cannot win," the shadows crooned, voices layered and overlapping, each one a dagger in her heart, and then she felt at the floor beneath her quake and pulse, a heartbeat, their chaotic rhythm building. The air thickened, pressing in as if the darkness itself demanded something of her. "Give in!" they shrieked, clawing deeper into her mind. "No! I will not!" she roared back, each word a defiance against the creeping dread that threatened to envelop her. Would her voice drown in the shadows, or would they slink away, weakened by her defiance? As the ground shifted once more, Sarah's resolve hardened. She would not fail him. But what awaited them both on the other side of this perilous darkness? "Mommy!" Jamie's plea echoed around, the desperation wrapping tightly around her heart. Could she truly reach him before the shadows won? The unfathomable dark hung over them, a looming threat she could feel in her bones. In the distance, something stirred. Would it lead her to Jamie, or deeper into the shadow's twisted game? The ground heaved beneath Sarah, sending her tumbling into the abyss. As darkness engulfed her, the laughter of the shadows morphed into a cacophony, a symphony of despair. The sound carved into her sanity, threatening to pull her apart. The pulse beneath her felt alive, a sinister heart beating in time with the creeping dread. "Mommy!" Jamie's voice pierced through the pandemonium, a crystal shard in a storm. She clawed her way back to consciousness, focusing solely on that voice. It was a lifeline, a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. "I'm coming," she screamed into the void, feeling the echoes of her own words bounce back, twisted and tainted. The shadows swarmed, wrapping around her limbs, dragging her further down. Fear surged like ice through her veins. With a primal roar, she fought against the grasping darkness, pushing against it with every ounce of strength. "I won't let you take him," she shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. The shadows recoiled at the sound of her defiance, but they were relentless. "Join us, Sarah," they hissed, slithering closer, their voices blending into an ominous chant. "There is no escape, only surrender." She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks, a mix of terror and determination. "I will never give in." A surge of light erupted from her core, blinding in its intensity. The cold darkness writhed back, letting her free for a moment. She surged upward, vision clearing amidst the swirling shadows. But there was no safety to be found. In the distance, Jamie's voice called again, smaller now, tinged with despair. "Help me please, Jamie." "Hold on," Sarah cried. She pushed forward, the air thick like molasses. The shadows clawed at her, whispering promises of oblivion, of peace and surrender, but she pressed on, fighting against the suffocating weight of their malevolence. What if she didn't find him in time? The thought twisted in her gut. Each pulse beneath her feet became a ticking clock, urging her to move faster, but the dark clamored louder. Images flashed in her mind, faces of the lost, the ones who had fallen prey to these monsters. She stumbled, rage filling her bones. "No more!" she bellowed, and with sheer willpower, she loosened a wave of brightness that scattered the shadows like cockroaches skittering from light. The shadows hissed in fury, reeling from the sudden onslaught. But among the chaos, darkness pooled together, forming a massive figure, taller than anything she had seen before. It loomed, a grotesque representation of all her fears, whispering her name, a soft, cruel echo laden with dread. Sarah, something cold crept into her heart. This was the source, the embodiment of the nightmare. Panic brushed against her resolve as it spoke again, its voice a sibilant whisper. "You have lost the battle, but I can offer you protection. Surrender, and join your son here." "No," she shouted, deciding then that fear would do nothing for her. "You will not take him. I will fight, until my last breath." With that, she sent a blast of light towards the dark figure, feeling the shadows recoil. As the light hit, the creature let out a horrid scream, unraveling and splintering into countless dark forms. Each screaming voice felt like knives against her psyche. "Together, we will consume your light," they cried in unison, their malice coiling, gathering into a storm of darkness, all undulating tendrils, ready to snatch her back. "Jamie!" she screamed, forcing herself to ignore the blackness clawing at her. The chaotic rush felt insurmountable, but in the flicker of light, she saw him again, a glimmer of hope trapped between shadows, but the pit in her stomach deepened. The darkness morphed, growing stronger, threatening to snuff out the remnants of her courage. Just as she reached toward the flickering light, the gaping maw of the abyss opened wider, swallowing her cries. What was the cost of her fight? She could feel the darkness weighing her down. With Jamie's voice echoing like a haunting melody, she leaned into the shadows, daring them to try again. "Come on!" she defied, adrenaline surging as she prepared to charge right in. But the whispers now carried a different tone. "The darkness takes its toll. Are you prepared for the price?" A choice lay ahead. Would she pay it? Or would she risk everything to save Jamie and herself? The answer lurked just beyond the abyss, a decision she had to make, a reckoning awaited. What would it demand of her? The darkness loomed around Sarah, thick as tar, smothering her spirit. Each breath felt like she was inhaling shadows. Panic threatened to claw its way up her throat again, but she tightened her fists, resolute. Jamie's voice floated on the edges of her consciousness, a desperate plea dragging her deeper into the nightmare. "Sarah, please, Jamie!" she called out, fighting back the encroaching fear. "I'm coming." Her voice reverberated through the void, nearly swallowed by the shadows. The ground beneath her shuddered, and the dark entities shrieked, echoing the chaos surrounding her. "Run, little boy. We wish to play." They taunted, their high-pitched laughter striking a chord of parental dread that twisted in her stomach. With a fierce determination, she willed herself to move through the haze. Each step felt like running through quicksand. As she charged forward, streaks of icy darkness snapped at her, each one aiming for the light radiating from her core. She could almost feel the cold tendrils wrapping around her ankles, threatening to pull her back into despair. "Make the choice, Sarah, and end the pain," the shadows hissed enticingly. "We can bring you to him, but you must surrender your light." Sarah shook her head violently, forcing her focus on Jamie. She charged deeper into the swirling mass, her heart racing as every flicker of light felt like a heartbeat echoing back to her. "No. My light is not yours to take." A flash of brightness pierced the dark just ahead. "Mommy." The sound was almost a whisper now, but it shot through her icy fear like fire. With renewed urgency, she surged toward it, her body fueled by a mother's love and unyielding hope. But with every step, the shadows thickened, swirling faster, choking out any remnants of light. The air was electric, a palpable tension that raised the hairs on her arms. "You will pay dearly for your defiance," a voice beckoned from the depths, smooth as silk and sharp as glass. "Surrender to us, your soul will be safe here." "Safe?" Sarah laughed bitterly, though the sound felt foreign in her own ears. "You call this safe? No. I'll never give in." Suddenly, she stumbled into a clearing, the shadows retreating momentarily in the presence of her defiance. She paused, gasping for breath. "Jamie!" Desperation clawed at her chest, and she scanned the void. And then she saw him, a small figure, flickering like a flame in the overwhelming dark. "Mommy! Help!" His small hands reached out, fear etched across his young face. "Hold on, Jamie. I'm coming." Just as she lunged forward, the figure appeared before her, a grotesque mimic of Jamie, shadowed and contorted. "You thought you could save him?" It taunted, a malicious grin stretching across its featureless face. "He belongs to us now." The sight drove a spear of ice through her heart. A chilling realization dawned, for every moment she fought, the shadows wrapped tighter around her son. "No!" She screamed, fury igniting in her chest. "Let him go." With a surge of determination, she forged a harsh wave of light, slashing through the dark. The shadowy version of Jamie shrieked, dissolving into nothing as the wave breached the void. For that fleeting moment, she felt the power of her love, a raw, pure energy that could disrupt the darkness, but the moment was preciously brief. The shadows screamed louder, whirling angrily, swirling around her, hungry and relentless. "You will still pay the toll, Sarah." They wailed as one, their voices melding together in a haunting crescendo. Emily's stomach turned, the realization crashed over her. What did they mean by the toll? The sense of fear was no longer just about losing Jamie, it was seeping deeper, revealing a faint flicker of itself. "Mommy, I'm scared." Terror surged anew as Jamie's voice wavered, the shadows closing in like a thunderstorm. The darkness was overwhelming. She clenched her fists, teetering on the edge of despair, until a desperate thought sparked. She found herself at a crossroads, pushed beyond her limits. What price would she pay to save him? The raging shadows waited, their whispers twisting through her mind. The choices began to blur, distorted by fear, but there was no time to falter. Please, Jamie, what sacrifice was she willing to make? Would the darkness consume her, and if so, what would it take to save her son? The darkness let out a collective breath, anticipation humming in the air. Something profound hung in the balance. Choose us, Sarah. Would she stand on the brink, ready to leap into the unknown? Or was their offer of power too good to be true? The answer loomed closer, just out of reach, but the looming shadows were already gathering, hungry for her answer. The shadows wriggled closer, like ants drawn to a sweet crumb, waiting for Sarah to make her choice. She could feel her heart racing, pounding against her chest like a drum signaling the end of a battle. "You will pay dearly, you will lose everything," they whispered, voices dripping with malice. The darkness pulsed, humming with energy, but it would not claim her so easily. "No!" Sarah cried, shaking her head violently. She refused to give in to their taunts. Jamie's face flickered like a beacon in the storm, and she fought through the thick, suffocating darkness, ripping her gaze from the demonic reflection of her boy. "You will not take him from me." The shadows laughed, a cruel, derisive sound that echoed through the abyss. They surged forward, tendrils reaching for her, squeezing her resolve like a vice. But she was fueled by the fierce essence of motherhood. With each defiant breath, she felt the warmth of Jamie's hope radiate within her, fortifying her spirit against the chilling void. "I'd rather face the unknown than let you have him," she bellowed, determination coursing through her veins like fire. She felt the flickers of light begin to encase her, a soft warmth spreading from her heart outward, emanating a bright hue that even the shadows feared. "Come back." Jamie's whimper felt like it was a dagger to her heart. "Mommy, help." Time slowed. Every heartbeat thundered in her ears as she strained toward his anguished voice. She saw him struggling against the darkness creeping in, shadows entangling his small frame. They twisted and curled, whispering promises of eternal fun, games of laughter, of never-ending childhood, but she knew better. Those words were shackles, meant to imprison their love in knots of despair. With every ounce of strength, she pushed herself forward. The shadows screamed, in a roiling mass of fury, tightening their grip, but she pressed against them. "I choose light," she roared, and with her mother's love amplifying her resolve, she let the wave of brightness surge through her body. The darkness shrieked. The sound splintered the air, ripping through the fabric of the void. It pulled back, recoiling from what she had unleashed, as brightness lanced through the oppressive gloom, illuminating every corner, every inch of Nathan. "Mommy!" Jamie cried, and her heart soared, redoubling her efforts. She fought against the shadows, driven by pure instinct, racing toward him. "Hold on just a little longer." And then she was there, the beams of light encircling them both, illuminating the twisted forms with a suffocating intensity. Each shadow that encroached became brittle, crumbling under the light that surged from within her. She clasped Jamie's small hand tightly, feeling his warmth grounding her, reminding her of everything worth fighting for. "Mommy!" Jamie's voice broke through her heart like a sunbeam. "I'm so scared." "I know. Trust me. This isn't over," she promised, knowing that the shadows clung to her words, twisted them, relishing in the fear they invoked. But as they fought back, their screams of rage resonated around her, she understood a deep clarity took hold. "I will let go of my fear. My love is stronger." Her voice echoed with power, rebounding through the darkened void. The light surged, washing over them both as she fought to break free of the bonds they had placed upon her. In a brilliant blast, the shadows hurled backward like microorganisms fleeing the sun. "No," they screeched, voices melding in a terrifying symphony of anger and desperation. "You cannot escape." But she could feel it, the light wielded strength. It pulsed through the shadows, exposing their flaws, revealing their true form. They began to unravel, unsure, trembling against the purity of her spirit. Sarah seized the moment, thundering her way toward Jamie, and then it happened, the light erupted, bursting forth from her as she hoisted Jamie towards her. "I love you, Jamie. We escape together." As if recognizing their defeat, the shadows shrieked one final time, their form collapsing as they dissolved into streams of dark mist, fading into nothingness. The ground heaved beneath their feet, light pushing back the remnants of the darkness that had haunted them. In a blinding flash, they were thrust into clarity, standing under the gentle glow of morning light filtering through the trees of Maple Hollow. The air felt alive, raw with possibilities, and as Sarah blinked against the brightness, her heart swelled. "Mommy, we did it." Jamie laughed, his pure joy echoing in her heart. A wave of relief washed over her as she knelt, pulling him into her arms tightly, breathing in his familiar scent, the normalcy that seemed so far away, now nestled in her embrace. Yes, we did. We're free. But as her eyes roamed the sunrise-drenched landscape, she felt the weight of something, a flicker of uncertainty. Would the shadows return? Was this truly peace? Remember, Jamie, she sighed, looking at him with fierce love, this darkness can always linger, but we face it together. Always. And as they turned back toward their home, hand in hand, a bond unbreakable forged in the flames of fear and love, they took a deep breath, a breath of triumph, of hope, a new beginning. Let us make the best of every moment, she whispered, her heart unburdened by the shadows of the past, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. As they stepped forward, a part of her knew that light could never fully extinguish darkness. It lived in balance, but she would never let it claim her or Jamie again. They were warriors of love now, armed with the knowledge that together, they could face anything. Their laughter echoed throughout Maple Hollow, a sweet counterpoint to the heavy past, as they ventured forward into the dawn of a new day. So here's your chance, folks. If you loved this thrilling conclusion, don't wait a second longer. You need to subscribe now to catch the next heart-pounding story as they come. Smash that like button now to help us reach even more fans who thrive on these wild adventures. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your thoughts about how Sarah and Jamie faced the shadows. Your theories matter. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible journey. Your support makes all the difference.